Hey guys, how's it going? It's a beautiful day today. I'm on vacation, last one of the year. Yeah, fall is here, man. So I'm starting to do a few things that I always do this time of the year. I've cut the yard, hopefully for the last time. Started cleaning out the plant beds, and I gotta get my firewood uncovered and restacked. Call the chimney sweep. But today, what we're doing is a fall task. Is we're gonna be going through this car, getting it ready for its job as my winter daily driver, weekend driver, more likely, you could say. And so, anyway, we're going to be just kind of going through. We're going to be doing an oil change, and I think I've already lubed it recently. We're going to be just kind of lubing the locks and the hinges and stuff and making sure everything works. It doesn't need a lot. Just make sure the batteries connections are tight, belt's tight, and all that. I know I'm going to have to get some windshield wipers for it because these are starting to come apart finally. I always refill these. I don't ever replace those original wipers. So sometimes I have to get some new old replacement stock wipers. But all in all, this car stays in pretty good shape. Don't mind the cutouts here. I've been working on my quarters and stuff and patching this rust that was left. I already went around the window, done the windows and all that last year. You did that. You saw all that. Did the trunk. I still have a trunk leak that I've got to deal with. I'm going to get in there today and do that. I'm going to run some water over it and hopefully find where that's coming from. I may have had more than one. But really, it doesn't need much. I just want to tidy up some things with it. And I've been kind of, I've mentioned a time or two that I've considered selling this car. And I don't know. I don't think I'm going to right now because this is it's going to sound funny to say this. You're probably going to laugh, and let's not take this out of context, but this is a rare car, as it turns out. The only thing that makes this car rare is the color. This color is turbine bronze, code M. That's where I had to respray this little spot there, so it's a little bit brighter normally. This is a repaint. This car was probably repainted about 35 years ago. It's a very old repaint. Did a pretty good job. So anyway, it would be brighter than this. But that turbine bronze, if that sounds familiar, that is the same color that they put on the Chrysler turbine cars in 1965. Those were, I guess you could say, sort of an experimental car. It used I guess it was a gas turbine engine of some sort and all that, but it was never put in production. But it was that color. They called it. This color was that on those cars specifically, and I guess somewhere around the end of 1966 they introduced that color as a regular option on Dodges and Plymouths for 67 and 68 only. For 69 it went away. So there is a later bronze that you'll see on 73 and 74A bodies and maybe some others. It's just this is called bronze, but it's a K6, something like that. But it's not exactly the same color. So this car is very unusual because of this color. I've never seen another one in person. I've never even seen, as far as I know, there's a few darts this color that you can find on the internet, but there are no known pictures of one of these cars in this color. So if somebody ever finds one, let me know. I'd like to see another one, but I've never seen one this color. So I like that. I like things that are unique. And so it's never been restored or anything like that. I've done a lot of work to it just to kind of preserve it, but I do use it. It's a great running car. Drives good, everything. It's just easy to live with, and it's fun to work on. So when I don't feel like working on other things around here, sometimes I find myself coming back to this car, and it's like a book that you've read a few times. You come back and you always seem to find something different each time you read it, and that's the way with this car. So I've always been fascinated with it. Now, to give you the backstory, I don't have a lot of backstory on this car. I bought it about 4 or 5 years ago. Just, you know, it was a proverbial Craigslist purchase. It was cheap, didn't run very well, didn't look good, you know, interior's ratty, all that. So that's been documented on here on YouTube on this channel. So I've spent the time since then, you know, working on it, but that's about the only backstory I know. I don't know where it was sold new at. I know that at one point it did travel through Ohio, but you know, back then people drove these cars everywhere, so it could have been on a trip somewhere and just stopped and picked up a free windshield scraper. But that's about all I know of it. I've got it has a fender tag, it has the build sheet, but they don't tell you anything more than just how the car's built. And I think this car is 1 year too new. Chrysler Historical can provide you with a copy of the little punch card that they fed into the computer to spit out the build sheets. If you ask for it, I think they'll still do that, but I think this car is 1 year too new, and if it was not, then they could tell you where it was sold at, but I don't know. I don't know where it was sold at. And as I said, it's like a book, you know. When you go through, you kind of learn things about your car. You look at a lot of numbers. I look at a lot of numbers on cars, a lot of numbers, a lot of part numbers, a lot of research, a lot of that. Lots and lots and lots and lots. So I've got a pretty good idea of what's original on this car and what isn't. As far as I know, the rear end's original, but that's about it on the drivetrain. I had to replace the original transmission because it failed, but I still have it. I didn't get rid of it. But this engine, I've mentioned in different videos that this is not the original engine. Of course, you would never know that unless you check the VIN on it, on the car. But the VIN on the car calls out for it being equipped with a 170 cubic inch slant 6. That was the baby slant 6, and that was the base engine. If you ordered a base Valiant and you didn't check an engine option off, like this 225 or a V8, then a 170 is what you got. And so this car did come with one. It does not have one now. So I don't know the story on this, but I'll tell you what I do know and what I can kind of estimate happened. I think that the original engine failed at some point, catastrophically. And I don't think it just wore out. I think it failed because this is as it turns out, this is a service replacement engine from Plymouth. Meaning they took this car to the dealership and told them to put a replacement engine in it. So they put a long block in it. The long block is, I'll tell you how I know this. Slant 6s always have a code down here stamped into the top of the block right here beside the head, and that one says H225R, and then there's a 4-digit number down here. I think that says 1012. Now normally what that H stands for, that means that's a 1972 model year. Then 225 is a displacement, R means regular fuel. So it's just a garden variety slant 6, nothing unusual about it. But that date down there, normally they stamp an engine that goes into a car on an assembly line, like it gets put in, and it gets put in a vehicle and leaves the factory, has more digits on there. It has like what Chrysler calls their 10,000 day calendar, and you have to take that 4-digit number and enter it into that calendar program, and it tells you what day that this whatever it was produced. And so the other engine in there, the one for that Scamp that I'm working on, it has that, but this one does not. So I think that 1012, I think that's a different format. I'm going to estimate that's the 101st day of 1972. So that's when this engine was built, to our knowledge. So the other thing you look at, you come down here, and I'll see if I can get you guys down in there. But you see that pad right there? Let me kind of straighten the camera out. See how there's a pad there. Normally, on an engine 1968 later, it would have a partial VIN stamped into there. It would be like the model year, like 0 or 1 or 2, and then the plant that the vehicle that it was in was produced at, and then the last 6 of the VIN that's on the dash up there. So this one's blank. So that means that means obviously it's not this car's engine, and it was never put in. It was never put in a car or a truck on the assembly line. It means this is a service replacement engine. This is an engine that they built, you know, specifically to replace engines that fail. So somebody to my estimation, somebody owned this car, and I think they were maybe one of these folks that just like my grandparents were. That if anything happened to it, they took it to the dealer, said fix it. So I think that's what happened. The engine, something happened to the engine that was in it, and you know, way a long time ago, maybe early 70s, maybe 73, 74, somewhere in there. Because these engines will sit, these warranty engines will sit, or replacement engines will sit around. They don't often go right into a car or something right away. So I'd say, you know, sometime when this car's about 5 or 6 years old, maybe a little bit newer than that, 4 or 5 years old, I'd say the engine failed. They took it to the dealer. They said, put an engine in it. So the dealership ordered a long block that was not painted. They were never painted, to my knowledge. And they painted it red, and they put the 170s intake, which is that one, carburetor, accessories. It has a Mopar. It actually still has a Mopar water pump on it. So I just dressed it out, stuck it in there, put it back together, and off they went. And that's the engine that's in it now. So the wiper motor has been replaced at some point, probably with a junkyard wiper motor. It's got some writing on it. Now, there's not a guarantee. That may just be something they put on at the factory. It may be the original. There's supposed to be a tag on it, and I don't see one on it anywhere, but it's sure on. I think it could be the original. So that's that. That's what I know about the engine. And then this radiator has fascinated me also, because all this time I thought, well, somebody has replaced this radiator at some point, because this is the part number for a Mopar radiator. And that one comes back to a 1964 A-body 19-inch radiator. So obviously it wouldn't be in this car. This car should have a much newer number on there. So anyway, I thought, well, okay, somebody just replaced the radiator. But I remembered at some point, it occurred to me that these side panels that are on these radiators, if we get around here, these, I guess you could call them the brackets, whatever, these big panels here that are soldered into the radiator side of it there, usually always have a date code on them. So I went looking on this one to see what the date code was. Sure enough, I found it right there. It's not real easy to see, but that says 313-7. So that's the 313th day of 1967, which would have been about November the 12th or the 13th, somewhere in there, was when that bracket was produced. And this car was produced about a week later in November. So what I surmise is, I can tell by looking at this radiator that the top's been off of it. So either maybe at the same time that the engine blew up or whatever happened with it or something, they had to repair the radiator, at least the top of it. So, you know, it may have been later than that, but this radiator's been apart. So what they did is, looks like they used they might have put a core in it too, but it looks like they used the original side panels to the radiator and just put a replacement tank on it, a used tank or something. Isn't that crazy? And there's things on here too that I want to kind of revisit, because it may have been something, it was all something I did. This is not the original radiator cap. This radiator cap is a lot later cap. It's got the later part number on it, and it works just fine, but it's not the right one for it. This car doesn't use this kind of radiator cap. This is one for a expansion tank type deal. It works fine, but I mean, you can get aftermarket, you can get ones that are reproductions. They're not correct necessarily. I mean, they're close, but they're fine for this car. They're cheap, so I'm gonna get one of those, replace that. I'm gonna put a new overflow hose on it, because the overflow hose is too short. It does not go down to the lower bracket down there all as far as it should. And These hoses right here, these transcooler hoses are looking in rough shape. I had to kind of stick those together when I put this radiator, this transmission in rather, a couple years ago. So they're starting to leak, so that's not good. So we're going to fix that. And I think this dipstick is supposed to be red instead of black. So I'm going to repaint that and kind of age it a little bit. I don't like this negative battery cable because it's got this pigtail on it, which the ones that go on this car don't use a pigtail. The grounding is different. The later cars that work fine on the later car, like a 71 or 2 or 3 on up, because they use a little, you know, a little pigtail comes over here. And this one doesn't have that. This one grounds at the back. And I got to make sure that ground is on here. I think it is. I see it. It's right there. That one right there. It goes down. And there's a tape connection that I did when I put the transmission in. But I want to revisit that. I don't like the looks of that. That looks kind of tacky. So we'll be doing things like that. Just to kind of, you know, there's a Japanese or Asian word for continued improvement. And I don't remember the name of the word at all, but I'm going to try to keep, that's what I try to keep doing. I just kind of keep on improving this car as I go along till the day comes if I decide I do want to sell it. This gas cap, I don't like this either. I had to temporarily paint this gas cap, and it's not the right gas cap for it. This is a 70 something gas cap. Somebody's loading the vent off on it. Huh. Anyway, so I have to look to see if I still have an original gas cap. I don't think I do. But anyway, so that's what we're up to. And just kind of, you know, look through my parts in there. And then we're going to put this thing back on the road. Just keep on driving. So, you know, like I said, I like it. I like to drive it during the winter because it starts easy. It's got a good heater. You know, this is even, and some of this stuff, I tell you, some of this stuff is getting kind of pricey if you ever go looking for it to replace it. This air cleaner is original, and that oil cap is original also. And that thing, I saw one of those, somebody was asking $100 for one of those on the internet. I may not get it, but, and one thing I want to do too, I'm in here, this gas line is starting to rust really bad right there, so I'm going to put some grease or something on that. It's not the original alternator that was on here. It works good, so I don't have a problem with it. This car never had a hood pad, and it never had the seal. It never had the seal that goes across the top of the hood up here. It was in there somewhere up there, but never had that. Probably could use it if you want to add it, I guess. But when you had just a 6-cylinder, they didn't worry about that. That is not the correct battery hold down because it's supposed to be one that goes zoot, 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 zoot. So anyway, I'm going to start out. I'm going to do an oil change on it, as I said. So I've got my oil filter there. I saw something at the parts store yesterday that unnerved me for sure. They apparently now there's Fram motor oil. Can you believe that? Now it's probably just fine. No problems. I'm not saying don't use it, but I'm not going to use it. I don't use Fram oil filters, and I'm not going to use Fram oil. So I actually had to go, it irritated me because I actually had to go somewhere else. I was looking for Valvoline oil, and just plain old motor oil is getting kind of hard to find now. Everything's going to this long life and semi-synthetic and all that, and it's probably fine. But, oh, that reminds me. I think I'm going to have to go get some additive for this oil. I'm not sure I have any. I might go look and see if I got some left in there. Really, I don't think you have to really worry about it on a solid lifter engine, but I'm going to look. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to continue here, so we'll add to this as we go along with this little thing we're doing. So I'll see you in a bit. All right. I got this oil filter off. I thought I would show you something, point something out. So look down in here. This is the oil filter mount. This is part of the oil pump on these slant 6s. And this is, you see this thing in the center, it's called the standpipe. It has oil in it right now, as a matter of fact. But this is one thing to remember. depending on how old your engine is. There was a year that they changed the length of this standpipe. They shortened it. I think it was about 73. And so everything from that point down has a long standpipe, tall standpipe about 3 or 4 inches long like this one. And the ones after have a shorter one. And the only reason probably they went to the shorter one is just to use a cheaper, smaller oil filter. So just remember, you can't use a small filter on a long standpipe like this one. It won't fit, won't even go down on there. But you can use a large filter on the short one. It doesn't. You can interchange those. So this is the filter that goes on this engine. Tall one. I think that's equivalent, something like I think the Wix number is 51515, and I think the Fram number is, which I don't advise them to use a Fram, but it's PH8A. And of course, there's Motorcraft, might be FL1A, something like that. It's a very common filter. But this is a large filter, so the older engines have to have this large filter. You can't put the small one on it, and I wouldn't anyway. So I always use the large filter regardless. It won't hurt anything on the later engines. No problem at all. But anyway, so I know that 71 engine has the long filter. The 73 in there does not. It does not use have to have the long filter, have one on it. But so I think that change was for like 73. And I also noticed something else, that this engine doesn't have that guard in place under the filter. Under there, there's a piece of sheet metal that bolts to the oil pump. It kind of keeps the droppage, the spillage from the filter change, it kind of directs it backwards off the suspension like it got all over this one, but it's not going to hurt it. Oil and grease are not the enemies of a car, actually. People, Phil is a prime example. Well, he's just obsessive about keeping an engine clean, and I try to, but I don't worry if it's got oil down the side of it, because, or anywhere really, as long as it's not leaking a lot enough it's burning it off of something, I just let it ride, because heck, it preserves it. So anyway, and these Slant 6s are good at self-preservation as far as oiling goes, as far as oil coatings. So anyway, all right guys, just want to point that out to you. All right, oil change is done. So on the next item is, I pulled the plug out of the steering box. You check the lube in it, and it is full up to the top. So it's good. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, or at least a lot of people that don't know what to use in these steering boxes, the manual boxes like this one. You use grease. They used a substance, sort of, it's pretty close to chassis grease, but they called it a pourable grease. Pourable, not horrible. And that's what you use in it. You just fill it right up with it, and that's the extent of it. You don't want to use oil, gear oil, hypo oil, anything like that, because it will settle to the bottom of the box, and it will not keep everything lubricated up top, and probably will leak out the old seals and stuff. That's widely known. So anyway, just make sure you use this. Closest thing I've ever seen to this, to using these boxes, is the same thing I use in my lawnmower angle gear box, which is corn head grease. Comes in a squeeze bottle. If you go back to that video I did on that Toro, or Snapper mower rather, when I reworked it, I had to use some in that gearbox, and it comes in a bottle like oil for the rear end, but you can actually grease and squeeze it out. So anyway, that's got that. I'll just put this plug back in and tighten it down a little bit. I don't remember filming this. Maybe I did, but I don't remember this, because I keep thinking that I needed to check this. So I've got my tool there to tighten that back up. But all right then, we're going to continue. It's time to be watch the beers, the beers. Oh, there feel the pumpy. Put the bluey in the bluey in the tank. Oh, poor. Oh, don't just beedly booty. All the way up. Feely feel. Oh, the board to build the blue up to the tank. Squirty. Oh, we put more. Okay, I want to ask you something here. And be honest. How many times have you seen someone on YouTube fill up the washer fluid reservoir on a Plymouth Valiant? How many times? Be honest about it. Okay? Not many. This might be the only time you'll see this. I had a buddy drop by. He lives up the street up there. One of the houses that I go by on my way out. I always see him in there, and he's got a brother too, I think's with him. But he must have got out. I think they get out when they have one of those gates that open up when they leave and come in, and I think he got out when they probably went somewhere. He'll go back up here in a little bit. He's a good dog. He's calmer than the other one. The other one kind of tries to jump and stuff. So he's a little bit more independent. Yeah. I think I'm going to go in while he's around there for a little bit, because he'll head back home when he doesn't see me out here. See, you thought I hated dogs. Okay, so I tended to some things under the hood here. The more important things I did was I touched up these screws that were on the radiator. They were kind of rusty and didn't look good. I got that done. I went and brushed on some fluid film on this fuel line. I don't know why that thing is doing that, but it's not a good thing to have a rusting fuel line. It may have to actually be replaced at some point. But I did put on the correct offset battery hold down, fluid film the battery cables. Kind of missed that one a little bit. Just put another coat on my battery tray to keep that preserved. Like I said, did touch up the dipstick and reworked these transmission lines. And these lines are off of they don't look exactly like the ones that would be on this car, because they're off of a slant 6, but they were off of a Diplomat. As a matter of fact, they were off the same Diplomat that I got that transmission out of. So somewhere up here, the alignment between the ends of these are meant to have these connectors on them. The ends of those lines they have a flare on them, on that end of them, and so they had this right bolted on here. They had this little retainer, not that, but they had another big like a metal retainer that bolted down and bolted to them. And somewhere in all that interface there, it just isn't. It's not quite the same between this A body and that M body that one was. The radiator might have been a little bit configured a little bit differently, but either way, I've just took that bracket off. I think that was a better thing, to just leave that off. They're not rubbing anywhere. You know, you'd have to do a lot of rubbing to rub through those now. So anyway, that's about where I'm at. I'm just kind of touching up a little bit of paint here and there, you know, and trying not to make it look too new. I think this radiator cap, I was looking at this, these have a code on them, as a matter of fact. And this one is T1. So I'm willing to bet that may have been off that same Diplomat, because I tended to buy those when I saw them in the junkyard. But I'm gonna replace that though. I just don't like that. That's not the right one, as I said. So another thing I'm gonna have to deal with is these doggone hubcaps keep walking around the wheel. I put them on, and then I come to find this going on. They've rotated themselves till they hit the valve stem, and then I've just about cut the valve stem apart. So that is not going to work. I think what the reason of this is that, I mean, they're tight. You have to work to get them off here. But I think the reason is, see, that was not doing it, is these wheels have a lot of run out in them. I jacked this car up and checked those wheels, ran the car and everything and rotated them, and they just, a couple of them are just, see, this one's doing it too. That was bad, but I like those hubcaps. They're 68 hubcaps, but I can't have that going on. I mean, I've got another set of wheels. See, I thought I was being smooth with this. All I did was I took the wheels and tires that are off this car and put them on that one. And then I took those wheels that came on that Skimp and put these new tires on them. I thought, well, I've saved myself a lot of work, but I guarantee you, I'm probably going to have to end up swapping them all back out again. Never fails. But anyway, in the interim, before I do that, to keep it from chopping my valve stem off, I have a solution, I think. So hang tight. Oh boy, here's a trip to the hospital. See that? You ever see a black spider with a red on his bottom? That is a black widow. We'll be dispatching that SOB right now. So thankfully, you rarely encounter these things. But that's how you tell them. These are about the only two spiders in this part of the country that are capable of inflicting major damage to you. The other one is a brown recluse. Brown recluse is not pleasant to be bitten by one of those either. I got bitten by one this year, and it's not fun. But that sucker there is bad news. So always be careful when you're taking. I don't know why they want to live under. I guess because it's, you know, a sheltered area. But anytime you're working around in a car like this, you're very careful. Well, this one didn't have a spider in it. Look what it did have. You want it, you're gonna get it right now. Telling you, you're the wrong goon to mess with. Okay, so the cure is, for now at least, is just to go ahead and do the dishes. I've had this set of dog dish hubcaps just floating around for quite a while, and nothing really to use them on, so that'll get me away from having the hubcaps rotating into my valve stems, and then I can kick the can down the road a while on doing something with the wheels. But anyways, not my favorite wheel cover, but it's okay. We'll clean those wheels up a little bit and go with that. Those are actually 69 and later Plymouth hubcap, or dog dishes. The 68s and down are just like a lot of things now. They're also used on like road runners and things like that. And so they've become quite expensive to get those. More than I'm going to spend on this right now. Maybe later. All right. So you know you're working on an obscure four-door A-body when you're just happy that you can replace kind of worn out parts with marginally better parts. So okay, anyway, there is a sequence of events that you have to do, a sequence of actions that need to be done to get these windows, the vent window and the door glass out on one of these. So it's not hard to do whatsoever. The first thing you need to do is, I already jumped ahead of you a little bit, but you're going to take the window track bolts. They're nuts. There's a nut and a bolt. There's one at the bottom down here's got a plug over it. You take that loose, and then you take the one for the rear track. This is a bolt here. Here, And it does have some alignment, but this one's been in there so long I can see exactly where it was. But you can adjust it. It's not necessarily that it has to go all the way back. And then you get those out of the way, and that gives your door glass some movement room, because you can drop it, you kind of push it in a little bit and drop the door glass all the way down. And then go ahead and take the 3 bolts out of the regulator, which is this thing here, the roller on the end of it. And it just comes right out through here. Get that out of the way. You got 3 screws at the top, on the top of this vent wing window assembly. It's an assembly. And then you can get ready to start whizzling this thing out. So there's really nothing to it. You just sort of, said you got to get the door glass and everything kind of out of the way here, so you can start to kind of futz with this thing a little. I wouldn't say it's the easiest to do, but one thing, I'll make sure this thing's out. I don't think I have it out. So, in fact, I need gloves for this. Oh, okay, I see what I did wrong. I tried to tip it before I just got it all the way out down here. So, kind of fussy, a little. So. There we go. Pop out now. Yes, it is. Alright, so keep lifting it up. Try to get it to, there we go. You want to tip it towards the rear. Just pull it. And when it comes out, you have to rotate it, because it has this thing at the bottom that I was messing with. Right here, and this is the whole entire assembly. And I don't think they changed these through the years. I think they're from 67 to 76, should all be the same. It looks exactly like the one I took out over here. So it's in a little bit better. That one's in a little bit better condition. So in fact, I'm not sure. Nope, that's right. Like something was bent. And this one didn't necessarily have to come out. It's nothing real bad about it, except that the windlace up here is perished. It's pretty well fragmented and gone, and the window's rattling around. So there just isn't a lot you can do about that, because I think they make this, but this is a destroy to get out type of thing here. This window felt, whatever you want to call it. But I'll keep this because the glass is good in it. The assembly's good. So, you know, no reason to get rid of it, throw it away, anything like that. But since I have a new one to drop in, we're just going to do that. And then we want to take our door glass out. Just be kind of careful. Put my gloves back on. All that. This would have been, well, not really. Would have been easier to paint this. There it is. And you see what's going on with this one. I don't know if you can see or not, but there's up here towards the front, there's some scratches in it, and that was because, like I said, that piece of felt that goes along that I've taken out. I replaced those off the other car at one point. Those are they were in bad shape, so they had the metal backing. This was rubbing against that, I guess. So anyway, I won't need to keep this for any reason. I will, but the door glass it's no good. It's not useful. So, all right. So I'm not going to change the latches or anything on this side of the handles, anything, I don't think. I've got to get over there and look and see. This thing has these handles on the black ones. The handles really need to be changed, I guess, but they're kind of weathered, but I'm not too worried about that. It's mainly more than anything, I just want to get the glass changed. So anyway, all right, that's how you do that. Just put it back together the opposite of the way you took it apart. So I have water tested this thing thoroughly for minutes on end, and there's been nary a drop of water get in the trunk that way around the windows. So I'm pretty confident that this collapsed and deformed trunk seal that has something on it here. I don't know what that is. Maybe that was already leaking here. Has been, and they tried to seal it. I don't know. It's pretty common. That's what people do when they try to redneck it. Even today, the seals aren't expensive for this, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and just put trunk seal on it, because it's had it. It's dried out and it's squashed. And that's probably it. So we'll just do that. I'll put that on the list. Dang, it's always something. Hello. So anyway, my continuing endeavors to turn my Plymouth out there back original as possible. A while back, well, more than a while back, a long time ago actually, I started looking around for some replacements for the starter and the alternator. The ones that are on it work fine, and you know, the thing about those is every starter fits every engine with a couple exceptions, and every alternator more or less fits every engine with a few exceptions. So anyway, they get the original stuff. Whenever something happens to it, it gets taken off, turned in for a rebuild, or whatever as a core, and people don't think anything about it. They just get rid of it and it's gone. So many years later, if you want to turn something back original or as close to original as possible, so that all the dates match and the part numbers match, you got to go looking for it, scrounge stuff up, and sometimes pay through the nose for it. So anyway, the first thing that happened was I found this starter, I don't know, several months ago, and I finally got around to rebuilding it. And what's significant to me, to not hardly to anybody else, especially on YouTube, but to me is significant, it's the right date code. My car is late. It was built, let's see, first part of November 1967. So you know, your parts, if you're going to keep stuff, the original part numbers, you know, and the date code's accurate, then you got to have them before the car was built. So this one is right on the money. It has got a 67 stamped on it. That's your part number for the nose cone there, that 2095219. You would not believe how many people advertise starters for sale and use that number. That's not it. They don't know what they're talking about. And then you have a graph up there that's got dots in it, and that's 12 spaces, for one for each month. Every one of them's filled up as a month that's you know, indicates the date it was cast or whatever. So that one's through the 9th month, which is September, end of September, that the nose, the gear housing as they call it, was cast. And then the number on your armature housing should be similar to that. And in this one, it is. We have a part number there, and 397, which on these is correspond to the week. 39th week of 67, so that would be, right at the 1st of October, ended up the 1st of October of 67. So this one's spot on. So I went through and rebuilt this starter. They're not hard to rebuild. You'll never see anybody doing it on YouTube, but they're not hard to rebuild. These are the famous starters that everybody that ever makes a cold start or will it run video on YouTube, which I almost dread watching now if it's anything to do with the Mopar, because every time the same crap keeps happening. They can't get this tired old engine to start, and they're feeding it all this stuff, you know, and the first thing out of their mouths, well, that starter's, sound like that starter's going out, sound like that starter's not turning. Well, you don't know what you're talking about. if you knew anything about these and you weren't just trying to make a for high profit video, you would understand how fast these starters operate. It's not the starter's fault. And if they ever do burn them up, when they burn them up, they won't fix them. And this guy on YouTube he put out a video, which it's a pretty good video. He omitted some things. He didn't explain what stuff is all the way, but for the most part, he did okay. But he did a video on rebuilding one of these. And you know how many video views he's got? 452 people have watched. 400 times that's been watched. So there's no interest in it. Nobody cares. It's kind of it's a reflection of where YouTube has went now. And I won't go on and on and on about it, but I'm going to say my piece about it is that, I have a love-hate relationship with YouTube because I like the platform for what it is. You get to see a lot of stuff. I mean, I can sit there and watch Old Faithful erupt without ever going to Yellowstone or anything like that. It's a lot of stuff to see. But then, the subject matter that I'm interested in, which is working on cars and trucks and tractors and restoring things and all that, people have just sold themselves out now to just do the gravy stuff, the easy stuff. Will it run videos? Good Lord. Okay, yes, it's going to run, or you wouldn't make a video about it, would you? There's been a couple people that have actually made, showed stuff that's seized up, rusted up, won't run, and I don't get any more entertainment out of that either. I'm thinking, well, okay, great. Now what are you going to do? I'd like to see somebody that has stuff like that encounters something that's broken, actually see if you can fix it. See if you can learn something. Don't just get on the computer and order parts and stuff. Oh, I got to get a new carburetor. Oh, went to the parts store, got another alternator, got another starter. If I hear I went to the parts store, it's always generic plugs and plug wires and compression tests. I'm so over all that. It's not entertaining. It's done, okay? It doesn't matter what personalities you have on there that are doing it, what collaborations, the people that treat YouTube like TV, they love stuff like that because they're just tuned in. They don't give a crap about stuff like this. Not one iota. They want to tune in at the beginning of the broadcast and watch it through and then tune out at the end. That's all they care about. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in those people either, to be honest with you. So as you can see, I kind of have an issue with it, and like I said, I think YouTube has partially sold themselves out. People just doing this for the money, whatever. Even Musty, who I hold to a high standard, I think he's a benchmark for excellent videos. He's stopped working on cars now. He doesn't do anything but get air compressors and generators and lawnmowers and tillers and snow blowers and small engines, anything that has a small engine on it. That's all he works on now, just about. He's got stuff sitting in the background. Well, when are you going to work on any of that? Your excuse first was that it was too hot to weld in there, which I don't believe because you got air conditioning. That's bogus. Don't buy cars if you're not going to work on them. So this thing's sitting here. I'm going to have to kick this thing out because I got to have my garage back this winter. It's getting cold weather. I'm going to have to put the hood back on this because I can't get a windshield for it. I've asked people about a windshield, and people have, I know where there's a parts car. Somebody's got a parts car, probably got one in it. I haven't heard anything from them. I reached out to them. I hadn't heard a word about it. So, it is what it is. So we're going to have to push this thing out and cover it up for the winter probably. But, anyway, so I'm not sorry to be so gripey, but just, I get these days I'm thinking, well, why bother even tell people about stuff like that? They're just going to ruin all our parts. They're going to send all our damn good parts that are original and can be rebuilt overseas to be screwed up because they're too lazy. I want to see somebody tear a starter apart and try to fix it. Please, somebody do that. I want to see that. I've got an alternator, 2 alternators torn apart in the house in there in my indoor workshop. Right now, these old alternators, the ones that have to be totally unsoldered to fix them, but I'm fixing them. I'm figuring out how to do it. So you got parts out there for them. I got a tester right there for it. I don't go to the parts store and just say, give me an alternator, please. Anyway, train's coming, by the way, or going by. How many people know what this is? Nobody? Nobody knows what this is? I bet you don't. That's the correct original positive battery cable bracket for that Plymouth out there. I thought I had seen it. I thought it was floating around. I took it off when I had to do a lot of messing around with those manifolds when I got that car because they were leaking and stuff, and I had taken it apart at some point and had neglected to put that back on, so that's going back on as well. So I got one more piece of the puzzle. I found the original alternator for that car, and the bad part about it is that, you know, you see people. I've made videos before about this stuff. I've said, you know what? Don't believe these people you see on the internet that say this is a Hemi starter, 2095 150 goes on Hemis. Pay me $700 for this starter because these are Hemis. It is not. It is not. It is not. Don't fall for that. Those people are trying to gouge you. Because I'm telling you something, I've restored several of these now, and I know how much it costs to restore these. Even if you have to replace every bushing in it, even if you have to refinish it, if you have to put another armature in it, everything. I know how much it costs, and it is nowhere near $700. So I'll say this one more time. Maybe the few people that pay attention to this will remember it, but this 2095 150, this starter came on everything from 62 to 69. There were a couple things, like a 4-speed Hemi couldn't use this. A starter for a 4-speed Hemi, though, that's a valuable starter. If you can find one of those, you've got a treasure. This one, no. So it came on everything. It came on 318s, it came on 273, 318s, 340s, everything, slant 6s. So I think I've contributed to I've noticed that the starters on eBay and other places that have so-called Hemi starters, I noticed that has significantly dropped recently. So I'd like to hope that I'm the one that's contributed to that. But I'll tell you one thing, I had to pay through for that alternator. I mean, I paid a lot for it, probably more than I should have, but it was a date-coated alternator. And that daggum alternator, not only did it come on millions and millions and millions, I'm exaggerating, thousands upon thousands of late 60s Plymouths and Darts and everything with slant 6s in them, but it also came on a Hemi, and it also came on a Roadrunner without air conditioning. Any of those muscle cars that did not have air conditioning got that alternator for a couple, 3 years. So now, hopefully, I'm actually going to end up with 2 of them. I'm not going to tell you the number. But hopefully, the demand for those is going to stay kind of level. But, because I'm fearing most of those cars have been restored now. But there were many more of those alternators, those little 37 amp alternators that were put on slant 6s in there. Everywhere a Hemi or a Roadrunner. But that's the way it is. All right, guys, well, let's get back outside and get going on this. Okay, that's on there, all like it should be. And I'll tell you one thing I'm not real crazy about. I've been looking at some pictures of some original cars, and the way this looks, you know, kind of with everything, some stuff sort of painted real big and the rest of it not, it just kind of grates on me a little bit. So I think I'm going to work on that just a little bit. So I'm really pleased how this turned out. So I spent time just taking the makeup off of this stuff a little bit. The Radiator had a couple coats of cheap paint on it. I think the repair shop might have put one on it, and I put the other. But as I was saying, it kind of stuck out, looked too new. Yeah, I even aged my Super 225 decal. And I've de-restored this handle here so that it doesn't look as new as it is. Looks like the oil's been changed, you know, checked a lot in it. So I really like that. I like how this turned out. This looks more appropriate. You know, I guess your, you know, maybe not your perceptions, but your ideas about what's looking good change over time, and is, you know, either you have a perfectly nice new appearing engine bay and everything is, or you don't, and this one didn't. So it's just another one of those fun things to do. Good Lord, another one of those fun things to do on a fairly warm weekend. It's going to turn though, because as it always does, if we get a day that's like this, it's about 60. You can be guaranteed that it's going to turn to cold the next day, and that's true. It can be in the 50s tomorrow, low 50s, and the low tomorrow night is going to be about 25. And I've got my firewood stacked on the porch and my rack and everything, so I think I'm good to go. All right, well, I believe the next thing I'm going to do today, the rain, it's supposed to actually rain today, as if the turning cold wasn't bad enough. But I think I'm going to work on that truck a little bit over there, because I noticed my rear door will not lock and unlock with a key, nor with the lock button. So something's going on. Maybe something's broken, you think? So anyway, I want to get that taken apart, so if I need to order something, I can go ahead and do that tonight. All right, well, I think the only thing we got left here on this, as a matter of fact, is I'm going to, at some point, probably put the right alternator on it and all that, and get into that. So we'll do that at some point. But I think for the most part, we're about to the end of this. I still don't have the right jack for it. I need to look for a jack. Of course, I got to do the rust repair panels, and I got to do that inside, because the wind blows too much out here to do it outside, because it's gonna blow my shielding gas away. And I really don't like those dog dish hubcaps. So I think what I'm going to do, I did some research about it, as I do on everything that happens to my vehicles, and I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to have the two front tires swapped out, the wheels swapped out, because I don't remember that other car, those wheels when they were on it, the other wheels there that were on this car, I don't remember those doing that. So I think I'm going to look for the two best ones off of it, and we'll swap the two fronts out and see if that cures that, because the rears weren't doing it. So I think I just got a couple bum wheels here. So I guess with it, you know, if they're vibrating or whatever, I guess so. So all right, guys. Well, hope you've enjoyed this round of work on the good old 1968 Valiant 100. It's just a fun car, and as we do a little bit more to it, I'll bring you along, but I think we're ready to go through the winter on this, and try to stack some miles on this thing. I don't drive my everyday car on the weekend if I can help it. So anyway, all right, guys, we'll see you. Have a good one. Here's the mailbox that I had to replace from when Phil ran over it with his car. He ran over the small one I had. If he'd hit this one, he would have sure known it. So, you know who bought this mailbox? I did. You know who put the mailbox up? I did. And neither of those surprised me, because if I think back 20 years ago when Phil demolished my first mailbox elsewhere, I bought that mailbox and I put the replacement up myself also. So Phil, he talks a good game, but you know, he's not going to buy anything for anybody. He'll pay things that, you know, help himself, but no. So anyway, I hadn't heard anything about it. Anyway, he owes them the money for the mailbox, because they bought the last one. Somebody ran over the first one that was here. And I always say that the next one gets demolished, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to line it with concrete and stuff. And if somebody hits it, or somebody beats it up, it's going to hurt something besides the mailbox. But you know what would happen if I did that? Then I would be sued. I would be getting in trouble. And they would award somebody damages even though they were the perpetrator. They would award them damages against me. It's the way this works now in this country. The worst person gets the best result. That's the way it is. I had an acquaintance of mine I went to school with. I'll stop walking for a minute so I'm not bouncing up and down so much. But I had an acquaintance I went to college with 20 odd years ago. And he's a real nice guy. And he was going home one night, and I don't know what happened, if he had epilepsy or he had a diabetic thing. I don't know what was the deal, but he passed out or fell asleep or something and ran off the road and hit somebody's mailbox that was built with brick around it. You know, if you've seen, they're all over they're up and down the road up here all over the place because they look so good. I saw somebody building one day too, as a matter of fact. But he hit that thing and it broke it off at the base, but the thing stayed together and it came up over the hood of his little truck. He had a Ford Ranger. And it came up, a whole shebang came up over the hood of that truck and came through the windshield and hit him and all but killed him. He was never the same after that. And I mean, he was able to function and walk and hold a job and stuff. It didn't disable him really, but he died of some kind of cancer or something young. He's already passed away. I don't know if it's related to that. You never know. But so that's something to think about before you build one of those. I don't think his family sued the people with the mailbox, but I think it was real close to it that they could have, you know, because I don't know, it's some kind of a thing about that you can't put something that's like that could cause deadly harm like that on the side of the road. So I don't know that all these brick mailbox surrounds are legal or not, really. It probably depends on where you live at. Out here in the sticks out here where nobody wants the government to tell them what to do, nobody even care. But if you live someplace where people actually do care and pay attention to stuff like that, you might have problems. But anyway, I'd be interested to hear what people think about that. Well, okay, I think I'm going to get my car moved over, and my work car, move it over by the porch and vacuum it out. It got kind of straw in there, man. So do that and then see what the weather holds. I may work on the old slant 6 in there a little bit. You know, I got a subscription that was going to build a slant 6 and he never did it. I wonder what happened. It's called motivation, folks. It's called get out there and do it. This old guy gets out there and busts my rear end on stuff, man, because it has to be done. There's nobody going to do it for me. So if you don't do it, then apparently you don't want to do it. You don't really want to do it. You like the idea, but not the work, baby. I don't know. All right, enough yapping about stuff like that, and I will see you on another one. I don't know which video I'm going to put this in. I'm going to tag this onto the end of one of them. But anyway, so as always, take care of yourselves. See ya. Okay, well, it is turned into a cold, blustery, rainy day today. And I'm having to stick this one in. This is being recorded after the fact, sort of, because I had to wait on a couple parts. But two last things I was going to do is I wanted to go ahead and replace a couple things under here that were needing to be replaced. And one of them was this overflow hose that goes down. As you can see, that one goes all the way down and exits out that hole down there. And the one that was on it was, you know, no holes or anything, but it's too short. So it's never good to be too short. So anyway, I ordered a new one off the computer thing. Got it in, and there it is. And the other thing is, I want to go ahead and put the right radiator cap on this just because I wanted to. And that's it. This is a reproduction. It's not exact. That 16's in the wrong spot. And the type's a little bit different, but these days and age, it's what you get. So, wasn't expensive. You'll notice the difference on this. This has one gasket right here, which seals right here, and this one here that I took off of it has 2 seals, double seal, single seal, double seal. Well, the reason for that is you can use this one on either kind, but this, there it goes. This is one designed for this kind of radiator system where you do not have a recovery tank where it has to suck it back in. The ones that just fell in there, the reason why it seals, it seals up here and in there, and that's so that it will pull coolant back out of the tank. This car didn't have a tank. They would not have them for about another 5 years. So this is fine. You notice I keep my coolant level down. You can't see that, but it's down where it should be, so really don't ever have problems with it spitting stuff out. And oh, that sounded good, didn't it? It sounds different. Have you ever heard somebody say that? The radiator cap sounds different. Not really anything I can do about it being so shiny, but it is what it is. We might do something to kind of maybe mess it up a little bit. Make it age a little bit. We'll see. I got an idea or two for that. May do it on its own. But all right, guys. Well, this is going to go in the queue there when you the next clip is going to be back. The weather's going to change immediately back to like it was because that was a different day. Anyway, just want to bring you along and show you that. And anyway, we've a lot of fun with this. I still don't like those hubcaps though, so we're gonna do something about that, but that's coming up later. All right, on with the show. Howdy folks, just a little addendum to that video on the Plymouth. So this car is getting kicked out for the winter. I didn't exactly want to put it out, but I've got to have my slot in there to work on things during the winter, so I don't have to work out in the weather and things out here. So I went around and sealed this thing up as well as I could. I've put plastic over the front where the windshield would be. There was a windshield, there's not one. Put plastic over the engine. I would like to have put the hood on it, but my back just can't deal with that. I've had a long term, for many years, I've had issues with my upper back and neck and shoulders and stuff, and it's just, I've been having a little bit of a flare up with it lately, so I can't, that ain't gonna happen. So anyway, this thing's gonna go, I'm gonna put it up against where this one's at. Leave me some space to park my car over here on the pad. And anyway, so we're gonna carry, got a tarp to put over it. You know, there again, wasn't really what I wanted to do, but may have a windshield for this thing. May even have a whole parts car if I can negotiate for that. I don't know yet. I haven't heard anything. I've got to reach out for that again, I guess. But we'll see what happens with it. But one way or another, we'll get back on this thing in the springtime, good Lord willing. And hopefully by then I've also got the engine put together for this and transmission and stuff, and we can just have a body fest at that time. Get both of them going. Let's hope. So, all right, well, just wanted to stick this in with the other. I thought it'd be kind of related to that. So, thanks again for watching. Happy birthday, America.